The UN, they came to you guys because they want to build a space nation.
With another party that asked us to build the satellite for them.
Renovated part of downtown Upland to build a aerospace startup.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So that's been LaserBeam to talk to each other. And that's a new backbone layer that's happening in the space sector right now.
The commercialization of space and just the innovations being pumped out. Is there anything that worries you? From South Bend to Evansville and everywhere in between, this is Get In, the show focused on the Hoosier State and the incredible stories happening here today. I'm Nate Spengel, founder of Get Indiana, and I will be your host for today's conversation. A quick shout out to our friends at Pence Media Group. They're one of PR Daily's top agencies and one of the most trusted communications teams in and around Indy. Pence Media Group knows how to bring brands to life across every channel. This is a team that knows the indie market inside and out, but thinks big enough to compete anywhere. PMG works with noteworthy names like FFA, Riley's Children's Foundation, Hancock Health, and Pinheads. If you're launching something new, rebuilding your brand, or trying to grow faster and smarter, they've got the experts to make it happen. So if you need a partner that can transform your PR, marketing, branding, or digital services, check out Pence Media Group at pencemediagroup.com. Now let's get into the episode. Matt Voss is the president of NearSpace Launch, an Upland, Indiana-based aerospace company that manufactures CubeSat satellites and communication systems. Over the past 12 years, the team built and delivered over 100 SmallSats to orbit. He served as COO from 2019 until he was named president in 2025. He is focused on scaling the company's national aerospace partnerships while operating from rural Grant County. Voss is proving that rural America is doing big things when it comes to aerospace, and I'm so excited to have you on the show today. We're going to dive into how an aerospace company was built in rural Indiana, the crazy cool things you're doing, and how you're pouring back into the youth and universities across the state of Indiana, literally helping, I think, 6 different universities in our state launch something into space this year. So crazy. Matt, we're really excited to have you here. Welcome to Get In.
Well, thanks for having me here, Nate. It's excited to hear always the fun things going around Indiana and just being a small part of it.
Yeah, I mean, when I heard about this story for the first time, that there was a company up in Upland that was helping launch things, launch satellites, communication systems, and putting a physical thing into space, I was dumbfounded. How does this even, how does someone wake up one day and say, I want to start an aerospace company?
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. I mean, it's about 12 years old company, so it didn't happen overnight. It was in a basement, kind of starting a fun tech company, kind of growing, and just incrementally over the years, we've just added more capability. But I can give a backstory.
Take us to what started in the basement. What were you guys?
What was cooking up there?
Yeah.
So Dr. Hank Voss, my dad, and also Jeff Daly were working together. They were working at Taylor University at the time. And then previously, Hank Voss was at Lockheed Martin and worked there for about 15 years.
And Lockheed is like you think of Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and
you got it.
The Rolls Royce, not the car side, but the space
aerospace side, and doing some cool things like that.
And what type of businesses are those? I think I heard everyone knows the names, but what do they actually do?
Yeah, they service the government as far as they do a lot of different things, but area that you might be referring to, they do a lot of government support and DOD and just requirements that are making all things tech and aerospace, defense tech. So they do a lot of different things there. But
so when people think of NASA building rockets and going to the moon,
Yeah.
was that all made internally, or was were there partnerships with places like Lockheed or places like Raytheon?
Yeah, so NASA first, pushed the moon, got us there. And then they've also been collaborating with a lot of other companies over the years that have grown into some of what we call the primes. And they do a lot of amazing work of doing some of the difficult tasks that NASA requests. And they help build it. And so manufacturing,
crazy.
A lot of that happens here in Indiana. We got Rolls-Royce, like you mentioned, L3 and many other great groups like that.
So your dad was working at Lockheed and then ended up going to teach at Taylor? What was he teaching?
So he taught at Taylor. He helped start the engineering program there back in the 1990s. And did that for over 20 years and really helped grow that program and really brought the small satellite manufacturing, which was a niche within the space industry. So we're talking small satellites that are like a box, like a computer size.
So 2 feet by 1 foot?
Yeah, things like that size. They're a lot smaller than, traditional size of a car or large satellites. And so back in the 90s, that was kind of considered, you couldn't do too much with it. Tech was a little bit bigger. But, our cell phones have shrunk and you can do a lot more powerful things with small satellites. And that is what he helped university students develop and grow at the university level. And that was growing across the nation. And then eventually in 2014, they flew their first satellite, Indiana's first satellite, with NearSpace Launch. So it was an exciting first mission.
Wait, okay. So as a company in 2014, so they decide, do they leave Taylor or do they do this like on the side?
Yeah, they left Taylor. So it was a spin out from the university.
Oh, is this like commercializing like research type stuff?
Yeah, exactly. So some great research that
What's
had
that
an
word?
opportunity to go.
Intellect transfer or something?
Yeah, and just transfer that into growing that whole entity there. So both Jeff with the manufacturing background and then also Hank with the science background, trying to figure out how to bring those two worlds together, and then started providing these radios.
So they set out in 2014 to build this company.
Yeah.
And how long did it take to go from we left the university and now we're launching something into space?
Yeah. So basically it took a while to get the first couple things on space. They first did this thing called TSAT. That was Indiana's first small satellite on orbit. Launched off a mission there that did achieve mission success. And then from there, Air Force Research Labs, which is the Space Force, previously Air Force at the time, wanted to do some more experiments with this satellite-to-satellite communication. It was very unique. So it really helped the community start to develop this system called the black box.
Okay. Well, I want to talk about how you go from a basement in, this is Grant County, right? Upland is Grant.
Yep.
A basement in Grant County, and you just start saying, hey, we're going to launch something. Like, what are the steps that go into getting that from a basement in Grant County to outer space?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it has to go through some great tech development, work on that. Then also go into a lot of the shows that space companies are at, wherever the conferences are at.
Yeah.
Kind of share the story of what this device could do. And a lot of operators that build spacecraft found the value in it. And it gives you a lot more real-time connection to your satellite.
Your dad, is he like the science guy?
Yeah.
So your dad is building this like small satellite
in partnership, with his Jeff Daly.
Okay. Well, is Jeff a tech guy? Like, is he a hard?
Yep.
Okay, so they're both like tinkering, like literally like soldering or doing whatever you do.
That's right.
To build this thing.
Really cool stuff.
And then they have to like hitch a ride on someone's like rocket.
Exactly. So we ship it to either Florida or California where the rocket's launched. Thankfully, most of the rules now is you launch the rocket over the ocean. So if it blows up, it lands in the ocean. So so it's always on the coast. We don't launch anything rocket wise from Grant County.
Okay.
But,
so you guys built this first small satellite.
Yep.
What was the goal of that satellite to do?
Yeah, it was to prove out this radio could work. And that was kind of a situation where traditionally, when you're on an orbit, you have to wait till you pass over a ground station to communicate to it. Especially in 2014, a lot of the satellites were only connecting to a ground station that passed over. We connected to a pre-existing constellation of satellites in orbit, so you could actually talk to your satellite over the ocean or over the poles. And so we now have over 230 of these on orbit. But it's really important to be able to talk to your satellite over the ocean or just more consistently.
So do you know anything about baseball?
A little bit.
So is your guys' satellite kind of like the cutoff man? Like where if they hit a ball out into the ends or into like the outfield, you throw it to someone like in the near outfield to then get it into base.
Right. Keep it more connected.
You guys were kind of like taking the relay from the big satellites that were up there down to you and then down to Earth.
So we'd send it out a little more back direction, but to the bigger constellation of like 60 satellites. I see it more as like Uber, Uber already had a bunch of cars out there and they were saying, hey, let's just use the cars that are there to service people. We said, why not, instead of building our own constellation of satellites to talk to, let's use pre-existing constellations like Globalstar and Iridium. And they collaborated with us to connect to their satellites and connect back down.
How fascinating.
Yeah.
So they build this out of their basement in Grant County. They achieved mission success on the first one.
Yep.
So that like, and is this like your guys' satellite, like give me like distances, like how far off the surface of the Earth is your guys' satellite?
Right. So we're right in the same range as the International Space Station. So they call it low Earth orbit. It's a very growing, expanding field, which is exciting. So it's a large range where the Starlink satellites with SpaceX, where they put all their satellites right in that same range area.
Wow.
So it's a lot more satellites are going there quickly.
Now, I think the question that a lot of people have is, how does this make money? Like, who are the customers that would be coming to you all to work on projects? And how do you start to build that over the last 12 years?
Yeah, it's changed over the 12 years. So you first started, we worked with a lot of the universities. We grew out of a university servicing them to help build satellites. As it grew, though, then we started doing more research dollars. kind of helping do what they call SBIRs, and that helps entrepreneurs really scale these fun tech ideas. But then we started working with commercial groups saying like, hey, some of these a lot more groups are wanting to fly their things on space. So if you wanted to fly a propulsion system, or if you wanted to fly your own sensor and prove it works on the satellite before you put it on a big satellite, we did a lot of experimental missions. But now we're in a stage where we're doing constellation manufacturing, which is a new stage and season where it's a more capable spacecraft that we're actually working through a DoD Joint Command for Space Force. We've built satellites for NASA now for some of their missions. And so it's been a really neat season for our NSL group to really do that, shift into that area.
Okay, so how long did it take to move out of the basement and into like I'm assuming you need like a laboratory type, like manufacturing kind of plant.
Yeah. So that was part of it. Is we were in rural Grand Canyon, like you said, and we wanted to look for a facility that we could use. So we actually found something in Upland, Indiana. There were several buildings downtown, and so I grew up there, and several of the team members had been there for a long time. We're just like, hey, why are these buildings always empty? And so we looked at those and started a renovation project. And thankfully, the people trusted us who were there to then see what we were trying to do. And so we renovated the 100-year-old buildings that used to have some great history, but had been empty for multiple years, decades. And we were like, let's renovate these and put our clean rooms and manufacturing stuff in there. So
you guys renovated part of downtown Upland to build a aerospace startup.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So it's been a fun journey.
Well, while you guys were deciding between, continuing to build out in Upland, were like the coastal traditional space towns like kind of appealing? Like, hey, maybe we should be at Cape Canaveral or somewhere down there so we're close to where we're launching from? Like, was that ever on the table?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we really were growing our own there. And so it really made sense just to stay in Upland. A couple of different reasons. I mean, the cost is very different. Like I was just out in Northern California, and the burn ratio for a lot of those companies is over, $1 million a month for a startup. That's a big call out. You definitely need a lot of help to do that. Our cost was a lot less. So
I mean, I'm assuming that aerospace is a capital intensive business, like you have, because you're making hardware. Like what's the average, startup have to raise to, prove out success to grow?
Yeah. So they have to, basically 80 to 90% of the groups that we work with have investment base, which is fantastic. It's needed and it can accelerate. So most of them have multiple millions to work out to raise.
Did you guys have to raise money?
We actually completely did by contracts. So we were self-grown, and that's just an opportunity we could do. I don't see how we could do that in some of those more expensive areas.
Yeah. How about attracting talent? Like how big is the team now?
Yeah, so we're about a team of 20 with both NearSpaces.
Yeah.
And so we actually, when I say both NearSpaces, to attract talent and also just to stay on mission for our educational side, because we grew out of a university. In 2020, we launched NearSpace Education, a 501c3 that really wants to take that little technology we're making and provide to the students and universities to work with. And so, what's been neat though, that's been a cool benefit is, some of the students that go through the programs and that we help with the universities have actually been hired on to our team for talent. So we have some great engineering schools, that are right around us that we collaborate with. And we're excited we do a lot of internships, and that's not really been one of our issues as the rate that we're growing. So we brought in probably about 8 people this last year. And,
no way.
A lot of great people helping us out.
Like aerospace engineers coming to live in Upland or near Upland to work for an aerospace startup. Like this sounds like fiction, there are so many, I always try to stay in the know of all the cool things happening around Indiana. Again, when I heard that there was an aerospace startup in Upland, I was like, I have to talk to these guys.
I'm so glad that we do. And it's fun. It's a lot of cool stuff. And, a lot of times people travel to the cities and it's a reverse direction. So we got people coming from Indy or Fort Wayne or Lafayette at times. So we have had different directions. And so we're kind of in a nice middle spot between several large cities off I-69 there.
I mean, since conception, you guys have launched over, 100 SmallSats?
That's right.
So take me through the first time you were at a launch and saw something that you built or your company, your team built here in Upland, make it to outer space.
Yeah, it was a really neat program that I got to step into. So I joined the team about 2018, and that's when they were working on this ThinSat program, which is actually a patent-grown spacecraft that's meant for manufacturing here. And it was working with a bunch of universities in Virginia. And that was a program where they built actually 60 satellites. And they worked with all the different schools and launched that off of Northrop Grumman. And I got to be there, and just like the vibration, the power of these rockets when they launch, you definitely experience. I don't know if you've been to a rocket launch before.
I've never been to a rocket launch.
Highly recommend it. It's fun. It's not what you expect, especially a night launch. It lights up the whole sky.
How many rockets are launched in any given year?
It used to be pretty sporadic, but with SpaceX transporter missions and all the other missions that SpaceX is doing, and other groups too, Firefly, Rocket Labs, Northrop Grumman is trying to get back there, is a cadence that can be, I think their goal is to do weekly. So
you're saying it's
a new age of space that we're moving into.
If you had to, give a rough estimate, how many rockets are launched a year in America?
That is a good question. I wouldn't be able to give you a good number. I could Google it for you, but it's definitely over 50. So
over 50. That's wild to me. Now, obviously, we're talking about SpaceX. I feel like everyone's been talking about SpaceX as the privatized space company. But you're talking about there's other.
It's an exploding industry. Yeah,
that are
really
launching
growing.
Rockets.
Exponential growth going on in the space industry right now. It's a lot of neat things that spun off from SpaceX, but also from a lot of the other companies there, and a lot of new opportunities, a lot of investments going into it as far as what can we do in space.
Yeah.
It's a lot more accessible than ever before. And, with that many things going up, what we do is we're secondary rides. So we have a lot of opportunities to fly things on orbit. That's why we have over 1,000 systems and subsystems on orbit now.
Like one thing when I think about space was this is like, is it the JFK time where they're like the space race? Is that JFK?
Yep, around his time. Yep.
Yeah, and it's like it was a mission to get to the moon, or it was a mission like win the space race against the Soviet Union and all this stuff. What's like the current mission? Like, what are all of these? And obviously people are like, solving smaller pain points, but when you think of the overarching mission of these space companies, what's the race to? What are people trying to get accomplished?
Yeah, I think there's different reasons for different groups, but I think there's an opening door to the commercialization of space. And so there's a race of just like, there's a lot of large players. You guys, Elon Musk is very common with that. You got Jeff Bezos on there. Sir Branson did a lot of stuff with Virgin. That kind of brought a lot of awareness to space and bringing it back there and looking up. I mean, space is really a fun thing, a lot going on there. I think SpaceX's goal to the Mars has driven a lot of his technology from that side, but also it brought a lot of attention to a lot of other groups to say, what else can we do up there? And I think the communications on orbit is going to be a big part of the future. We depend on connecting with all of our devices to space, and we're not even aware of how much is starting to happen. That we depend on the space sector to support all of our technologies.
Wow. Do you think there's a day when like companies, and it might already be like that, where they're buying like real estate within space?
Yeah.
Or like hey, this is where our satellite gets this prime real estate. Like, how does that work? How do you choose where you guys can orbit? Yeah.
Yeah. So traffic in space is becoming something that has to be managed. So it depends on what region of orbit you're in. So if you're in GEO, which is the higher one, you actually stay more stationary over a region of the world. But if you're in the LEO, you're going 17,000 miles per hour. So you're making almost 8 laps around the Earth, pretty regularly. So
eight laps.
Yeah. So you're going multiple times orbits around the Earth there. And so it's a thing that you have to really start tracking because you're going 17,000 miles per hour. That's the same speed as the International Space Station. So really one of the things we're learning is how can we help bring traffic in order to that. A lot of the satellites couldn't move or change orbit planes. So how do you also deorbit your satellite safely now and burn up in the atmosphere without re-entry and causing any issue?
Wait, so you're like, okay, mission, the lifespan of the communication device or whatever was 2 years or
exactly
however long.
You got it.
And at 2 years, you want it to just like vaporize or whatever in the atmosphere.
Yeah. So you have to build your satellites to make sure that all the elements in it will burn up in the atmosphere. And there's a lot of do no harm. So everything we build has to stand the space environment, but at the same time be able to burn up on re-entry.
In something like this, if you think of like the scientific method, right, where it's like variables, controls, you test it, you iterate, and then you keep testing it. I feel like you can't just like, okay, we're going to build something today, test it tomorrow. It's like, hey, how many launches are you guys a part of in any given year?
Yeah. So, this year, I think if I had to remember, 8 to 10 launches here. Yeah. It depends. Some of them were we built the whole spacecraft and put it on orbit. Sometimes we were just supporting the radio part of it. So there's a lot of missions that we get to join in. We even did this year a lot of the operations on orbit for customers, so that not only did we launch the satellite, but then supported the on-orbit operations of communicating back and forth. So there's some lonely stuff on orbit right now that we're helping talk to so it doesn't feel lonely.
Where was the moment in the journey that you guys knew you were onto something big?
So that's really the season we're stepping into right now. I think we've done a lot of iterations of a lot of neat technologies, a lot of R&D section, really transitioning to manufacturing right now. So it's a lot of the radio side of it where, when you've flown over 230 of something, and a lot of that's because groups come to you to find it and hear what you're doing. You really see okay, this is something that could help the space community a lot for tracking their systems. Yeah. And then also, the manufacturing, having a U.S. manufacturer in the small site sector that's not currently owned by one of the primes is a very independent thing that's self-grown, is a pretty unique offering to do.
When you say the primes, what are the primes?
Yeah, good question. So the primes would be a lot of those larger spacecraft groups, like we talked about Lockheed, Raytheon, L3, groups that are larger entities that support the defense space.
Have any of them tried to come and say, and acquire you guys and roll you up into what they're doing?
Yeah, so we haven't really opened ourselves up to that conversations too much right now. We want to keep maturing and growing, but we want to support them if they need certain missions. And we've been actually helping support them with some of our subsystems on some of their missions.
You're talking about subsystems.
Yeah, sorry.
I love it. No, I think it's so cool. And I do see your guys' commitment to education, your commitment to Grant County and Upland. I think that's so cool. Versus, you think about go raise a bunch of money, launch some things into space, and sell to one of the big primes. I think that's really, really fascinating. Where do you see NearSpace Launch going in the next decade? You've been around for 12 years and you're kind of hitting this growth phase. Where are you at? Where's the mission?
Yeah, we're excited about making constellations, supporting more higher class required spacecraft that we have on orbit right now, proven out. So usually we like to see it work on orbit before we start to scale it, and that's happened already. So that's a neat achievement this last year.
So who would come to you? What company would come to you all to build a constellation, and how much does it cost to put something up into space?
Yeah, so we can bring it down by a factor of half of the cost that usually it would cost to go to space.
And what does it usually cost to go to space?
It's usually about $10 million, $5 million kind of projects that you're working on, and so we can do that for a lot less.
So someone came to you guys, the first ever customer, whoever it was we want to get this communication, this satellite into space. And you're it's going to be between $5 and $10 million for one launch.
So previously, I think that was kind of the economy, but as it's becoming more manufactured and a lot of things are becoming, the price is dropping, the cost of launches are dropping. So it's becoming more accessible, and that's a neat thing. So a lot more groups are interested in it. A lot more commercial groups are hey, what can our cool tech on terrestrially be brought to space? And that's something that was really fun for us, is we get to work with those companies that have some cool tech already and bring that into the space community and say, hey, how can we help you adopt that to orbit?
And so over the next 10 years, you guys are excited about launch constellations, which would be a lot of different units.
Exactly. So it's multiple satellites to serve a purpose. So it's not just building one off satellite and then build it and launch it, but usually it would be satellites talking to each other. It could be groups that have alternate GPS. It could be groups that have an ability to do space weather analysis. So the people that are interested in clusters of satellites, so 3 or 4, maybe 6, 7, so all those kind of different parts there. We can see how it goes. So I have a bunch of little kids, so I couldn't help the 6.
Yeah, you had to hit the 6.
I'm trying to make it uncool. So
come on. No, wait. So who would be someone that would buy or partner with you guys to launch 7 satellites in a constellation? What's make it make sense to me in a use case for how it would affect my everyday?
One public project that we're working on is there's one with the DoD that we're working with Space Force and Naval Research Labs. This one is an experimental one where we're basically launching 3 different satellites for them right now. That's going to launch here in Transporter 17, which is this summer. And they'll be basically seeing how they perform on orbit, and if these are the newest technologies that are currently being used terrestrially, and they say, hey, can we adapt those, put those on orbit, and then they want to put it on their bigger spacecraft for the future. So there's always going to be experimental missions that we do. Yeah. That's a fun spot that we've always done and will continue to do. But then there'll be also more mission-specific groups that really want to understand the re-entry part of the Earth. So like we were talking about earlier, there's different regions of orbit, like the GEO and the LEO. There's this part called very low Earth orbit. So it's before you re-enter and before you are kind of out of the hypersonic regions where they launch. That's where cranes are doing a lot of neat things. But the VLEO region is this atmosphere. It's our 1% area that a lot of the particles, a lot of things are happening there, but we don't get to research a lot of stuff there because everything burns up there, right? And so these small satellites are ideal to go into that region that a lot of our atmosphere is at, where it burns up, and we need to study it because the communication between that region is going to affect a lot our cell phones and other things. And so we need to know more what's going on there. So we're very curious about that region. The VLEO, we call it as well.
Well, it definitely seems like you all as a company are committed to lifelong learning. And it's like, you know, I feel like in a thing like aerospace, you have to be. And you have a commitment to helping like create opportunity for students.
Yeah.
You know, like you're working with 6 different universities in Indiana to help them get a better education of all things space. Talk to me about what you're doing with NearSpace education and helping 6 Indiana universities make it to space.
Yeah, no, thanks for asking. It's so basically, we grew out of a university, you know, 2014, and then we saw mission drift. We were getting more involved with commercial and government projects, and you know, which is great, and it was stimulating a great ecosystem work in, and helped us scale a lot of the things in Upland and Grant County there. But then, in 2020, we saw the mission of still wanting to help with education, and so we launched the nonprofit. And a great team is helping grow with the universities. And so taking some of the technology that NSL is manufacturing and creating a STEM version of that, but also using high altitude balloon. That's where we started, was a very entry level way of doing launch high altitude balloon to the top 1% in the atmosphere. Let students collect the same radio that we use on orbit, the same one that they can launch from anywhere in Indiana. We launched 12 of them during the eclipse, you know, one from the Indy 500 with NASA and other groups. It's a great learning tool.
Like, did you have to get like permitting and stuff to launch a high altitude balloon?
Yeah, we always let the airports and other groups work with them. And so we kind of walk schools through that process. And, you know, that's where Indiana's great is, you know, we have grids. So we can, you know, as far as nice squares to go chase down the balloon. So we actually chase them down, collect them, bring them back. So
no way. So you launched one from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway?
We did.
And how far up did it go?
Usually they go about 90,000 to 100,000 feet up.
Holy. Okay, what's that versus like if I just let go of a helium balloon, how far will that go?
That's a good question there. I haven't looked at that. But like your airplanes are, you know, going about 30,000, 40,000 feet, you know, in the air. So this is the top 1%. So you actually, if you bring a camera to that height, you can actually see the curvature of the Earth. So you see the whole round parts there. So it's a neat time to launch a high altitude balloon.
Okay. So a typical helium filled latex party balloon will ascend to about 10 or 20,000 feet.
Okay.
While professional high altitude balloons can go 90, 100, 130,000 feet in the air.
That's right.
So how high did you guys give them?
So usually about 90 to 100,000. So
90 to
ours are mostly weather balloons that go up, and then we bring a parachute to it and burst it and bring it back down. And then we pick it up.
Is that like auto set where it's like it gets high enough and then you burst the balloon and then it auto deploys the parachute?
You could do it that way. We also just, a simple way too is because the pressure just gets on orbit, so as it gets higher and higher, it just spreads the balloon out more and then burst. And so when the balloon bursts, it comes back down. So you actually can project where you launch from, most likely where it's going to land in a region.
Okay, so how far away did it land from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway? You launched a 90,000 foot high altitude balloon from the Motor Speedway during the eclipse. Where did you have to pick it up from?
Usually it's a 2-hour drive to go pick it up and chase it down. So we have a chase team that goes after it, which is really fun. About usually Ohio or on the border of Indiana.
Yeah. Well, how many did you launch from the Speedway?
So we launched, I believe, 2, but we launched about 15 that day with partners all the way up and down the eclipse. And so we collected data at the same time with different partners from museums and other universities. So we had, people have eclipse parties. Why not launch a balloon during that time right beforehand? Yeah. And we have some great photos of the eclipse from that height of 80,000 feet.
No way.
It's some really fun things to look at. Our NearSpace education website tracked a lot of that. So, and we're working with a lot of schools right now to launch these high altitude balloons, and students are still doing that today.
That's nuts. So the one that launched from the Speedway is like you ended up chasing it down over near Ohio?
Yeah, a lot of our team members went and chased it there, and it was really neat. We got to work with some other tech companies here in Indiana. Tactile Engineering works with the School of the Blind, and they have a lot of Braille reading active dynamics. So we plugged our radios in with them at the 500, and they had a lot of their students able to watch the balloon go up and down and see the light go through with the tactile engineering. So it was it's just neat collaborations we get to do with other tech companies.
That is so wild. Like, I just can't imagine.
It was a fun day. I mean, Eclipse was a pretty amazing day in April. And that was actually kind of the launch of NearSpace education. Was from that is like, there's all these inspiring events that are happening around from looking up. And so we just want to use those moments and say, hey, there's more to it, and they can get equipped and also go. So our whole thing with NSC is to inspire, equip, and impact. So we want the kids to be inspired, but also equip them with some of the tools out there. So we give them not just the balloons, but they can go through our space camps that does soldering. They do microchip building. And actually, that's one of the neat initiatives we have through NSC is the Dream Big programs.
What 6 universities are there?
So 4 of those are in Indiana. We're working the tri-state. And then so it's Notre Dame, Valparaiso, Purdue, Taylor University, Purdue Fort Wayne, and then also Western Michigan and the University of Toledo. So it was funded by the Donwood Foundation and working with NearSpace Launch to use NSC to collaborate with the schools. And they all built, we said, hey, we didn't tell the schools what they had to build as their payload, but they had to fit within this satellite's confines. And they learned the same engineering process that we would go through when we have to go build something for NASA or Space Force. They had to go through these same design reviews. And then they did it in 1 year, which is really a significant factor. Because usually if you build a satellite, it can take 4 to 5 years. Students never actually get to launch it. They only do one part of the process. So we're like, hey, let's build the satellite. And then they work on the payload, the experiment, whatever they want to fly and plug into it. And it was a great project for engineering students.
Yeah.
But they also worked with K through 12. So the universities in their region, we also helped them, supported them with 3 high altitude balloon launches and said, hey, can you go reach out to your different schools in your region? So built pipelines of the K through 12 meeting university students to launch these high altitude balloons.
So cool.
And then the university students got to build the satellites. And then we're going to host a party here in March or April as a launch party for these 6 satellites. So a constellation of satellites that are being launched from the Midwest here. It's really fun to share about. From Upland, Indiana, from Grant County. So we're going to do that right there and invite a lot of people to that. And you're definitely welcome. And it'll be a fun time.
All right. We need to dive into this. So you guys from the nonprofit side, NearSpace Education.
That's right.
You partner with 6 universities, 4 in Indiana, 1 in Ohio, 1 in Michigan.
That's right.
And give them like a specifications of like you can build something within these confines.
You got it.
And we have real estate for you on a launch coming up.
Yep. So we help broker the launch, the licensing, all the things that make it hard to get to space. We kind of smooth that out through our NSL process. And NSC was educating the students about launching and how what you can put on orbit, can't put on orbit.
So what are the different like experiments or payloads? Like what are they putting up there?
It's quite a variety of things that they proposed, and most of them were able to deliver, and they all delivered a payload by the end of 1 year, which is really congratulations to all the hard work. They spent some late nights working on it. So that's just something to learn about delivering. But there's an idea of an attitude control system, so they actually can control the pointing direction of what they're doing. I believe Taylor University is interested in some redundant testing of systems there, so they're really into space manufacturing. Then there's another group that works on amateur radios from Valparaiso. They were interested in what they call a network of satellites or a network of radios that do them. They're doing some neat stuff at Valparaiso. So all sorts of different things. Some of it can be biological, it depends on what they want to test. And so there's some unique things that they're trying. So when you're in orbit, the attitude control system, when I said that, is basically there's no gravity to really point you in the direction you want to. So you usually have to use your reaction wheels, or you have to use some sort of magnet to help you point where you want to, because otherwise you can't point to the sun to get solar power, and you can't point to your ground station down below. So there's always groups trying to figure that out, how to help point your satellite without gravity,
That is something where I just assume it's like a little jet booster, like from Star Wars, but that's not exactly how it works.
You definitely, it's helpful to have some propulsion, but you still have to know where you're pointing first before you can do
that's
propulsion.
Crazy.
So, yeah.
Wow.
So there's a lot of factors you get to think about.
And then from that, you helped 6 universities in 1 year get to space.
And that was our phase 1, Dream Big. And so now we're moving to phase 2, which is a statewide for Indiana that we're working with 6 different partners. Can't list them all right now, but there will be, a lot of different groups that we're excited about. The State Museum we'll be working with here in Indianapolis, with Science Central in Fort Wayne, and a lot of other great partners like that, that schools and other people can do after school programs and work with these things called microbits that basically it's tools that kids are already working with. Robotics teams are doing it, and it's a great tool, but we're going to launch 900, work with 900 different students to work with microbits. And then also we'll launch 30 of those in about a year and a half.
What is a microbit?
Yeah. So it's actually founded by the BBC Foundation. And it's basically it's like with Arduino or a simple board that if you said, hey, I want to learn how to program a board, there's a lot of great educational. It's meant for, younger kids to work with. A lot of robotics clubs use something similar like Arduinos. And it basically teaches you programming, but also hardware and how those two interact. So it's great for kids to start diving into that and having fun with it. And then we're like, hey, let's take that fun stuff you're working on and let's see what experiment you can do on space with it. So this made a lot of different kids from, 8-year-olds all the way to, high schoolers are using it. So it's even younger students can get started thinking about STEM. And
this is like the space version of building the fighting robots, or like building the robots that have to throw the ball through the competitions that
they have these little bits on there. So those Arduinos a lot of times or some other Raspberry, but this is even microbits or even younger kids can get involved. So we're starting really young now and just saying like, hey, space is accessible. We got to reshift our mind of like technology's here and kids can work with it from home and, you can learn this stuff and then we can give access to them in rural locations. It doesn't have to be in certain special spots to do space stuff. We can do that from wherever. And we like to help groups do that.
That is wild to me.
It's fun.
I mean, so cool. And imagine, being a college junior or senior and on your resume saying like, I, with a small team, launched a satellite into space.
It changes your mindset, and I think, things are accessible more than before and you can do it from right here in Indiana. You can do it in a town of 3,000. You can do it from different places.
Now you talk about, right here in Indiana in a town of 3,000. Does that ever limit you guys when you're, trying to work with other big brands that are probably on the coast? Do they look down upon space and aerospace engineering being done here in the Hoosier State?
I think at first it does sometimes. I think especially when we had lower flight heritage, now that they see what we've accomplished and have proven over the years, there's a lot more respect for what it is. And there's a rethinking, I think, of, space has to be done in certain areas. And some of the things I shared earlier about how difficult it is to work in those regions sometimes, they're starting to look for other places. And there's some great engineering universities that come out of Indiana that we know about. And so I think a lot of them respect, a lot of them have gone to those institutions where they work. So the talent's here and we have a lot of the ingredients for doing this already. It's just kind of pulling it together.
Isn't Purdue like the astronaut capital of the world?
Yeah. So Purdue's leading, they have a space program now there. There's Indiana Space Grant that does a lot of stuff that we work with them there. Notre Dame's doing some great stuff. Taylor, other groups, Bloomington's doing great stuff. So there's a lot of great growth happening here, and it's just a matter of keeping some of those people here that we're excited about doing.
Here in Indiana, chances are you've heard the name Keller & Keller, and there's a reason so many Hoosiers trust them when something goes wrong. Keller & Keller is a local personal injury law firm that's been helping people across Indiana for over 90 years, and they've built their reputation on one simple thing: showing up for Hoosiers when they need it most. You talk to real humans, you get real answers, and they're available 24/7 by phone or live chat, so you're never stuck wondering what to do next. Whether it's a car accident, a truck crash, or an injury that's turned your life upside down, Keller & Keller knows how to deal with insurance companies and fight for what's fair, so you get to focus on your recovery. If you or someone you love has been hurt, don't fight alone. Call Keller & Keller or chat anytime at 2keller.com. That's the number 2keller.com. Keller & Keller, right here for Indiana when it matters most. Now let's get back into the episode. Why should the everyday Hoosier, how does this affect my life? How does the work that you guys are doing, even if it doesn't directly affect it today, how is it going to affect my life?
Yeah. So, it's already affecting your life. So there's already connections. I mean, when you're using your GPS, if you're using communications, Starlink, when you're using those comms for different groups, when you're starting, it's becoming more and more common. It's a domain that is becoming integrated into our networks. If you don't even aware of it, it's becoming one of the serious backbones of our networks. And so 5G, 6G, it's transitioning into that. And so a lot of groups, especially the larger companies, are starting to see what is their idea of how can they be involved in the space programs. And so
yeah, like who's like the most interesting or random company that's involved with space exploration where you're like, I wouldn't believe that like Nabisco has a small like a satellite, for Cheez-Its.
Yeah. So there's some really fun, unique marketing groups that kind of come along, and we've helped them look at that area there. That one project that was a fun one was we worked with the UN on what they called Asgardia. And so they're looking at making a space nation on orbit. So we built the satellite for them to put on orbit about a bunch of their future citizens that they're thinking about on orbit. And so it was a unique, very special program that we helped do.
The United Nations.
Yes.
The UN, like that we've heard, read about in the Wall Street Journal or whatever.
That's right. Yeah.
They came to you guys, or that you guys ended up working together with them because they want to build a space nation.
They had goals. There's a lot of great ambitions on space too, but they worked with the UN. We actually worked with another party that asked us to build the satellite for them. Yeah. They knew we were building them. So we were they asked us to build the satellite, and they helped with the launch part. So we worked with a group called NanoRacks or Voyager at the time.
That's crazy.
To put this on orbit with them. And so it was a neat, unique idea there, but there's some unique ideas that are coming as well. So there's some traditional tech that's put on orbit, but then there's some unique things like what else can we do on space? And so that's what are fun questions for us to do, and we're open to that. So.
Well, when you think about the two technological advances that seem to be all over the news is obviously space, and you think of like SpaceX and Blue Origin and like all the crazy stuff there, and AI. Like those are the two I feel like STEM sort of. They're very, very hype right now.
That's right.
Which one is changing faster? And out of those two, which one do you feel like is evolving and changing and innovating faster?
Well, the fun thing is we're trying to bring AI into space. So bringing both of those together is going to be a fun mix of how can we operate on orbit with AI tied to that. I think AI is going to be drastically changing our landscape and our world. It's a exciting time to be around, to focus on how we're constantly looking at that ourselves, how to integrate that into our build cycles and different processes. And being a small company, it's really neat to be able to, at a scaling stage, to be able to integrate AI into our scaling stage. Yeah. So it's a pretty strategic time for this all to unleash.
And I have to assume a largely like hardware and space is like a largely capital intensive business. So ways that you can use AI to keep your costs down, along with, real estate being, more affordable here in Indiana, like that has to help you, with value delivered to customers, like where you can cut down. It's not millions and millions and billions of dollars to get your constellation to space. It's like, hey, we're using these, for whether it's AI and these different ways to keep quality high, but also deliver.
Well, we can keep a smaller team while also putting on more output. So as a space entrepreneur, you have a lot more documentation and different things that you have to do. You have to really the AI really has helped us a lot.
Is that crazy? Like you walk into a party and people are like, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, and you're like, I'm a space entrepreneur.
Oh, it's a team. It's an honor to share about what the team is doing it. So I really enjoy telling the story for the guys.
If you walk into, like a networking event or something, how do you explain what you're doing to make it make sense to someone?
Yeah, I think it's a discussion about what is the purpose of space like we're having right now. Yeah. And just saying, the space is a lot more accessible. It's a lot more here than we realize. And just saying we actually build spacecraft to put stuff on orbit. So it's a fun conversation.
Do people look at you like, okay, this guy's pulling my leg?
Yeah. Well, they have to get the right category of what we're talking about. Like sometimes it's satellite dish network they're thinking, or different processes. So it's a very niche area that's not a common thing that people talk about. And so it's fun to introduce a new ecosystem to people.
What's the coolest space innovation that's launched recently, whether it's with you guys or just in general, that like if you think of something like Starlink, like really cool innovation where you can go and hook up your device to Wi-Fi like almost anywhere, right? Yeah. Like, are there other cool innovations that you've seen come out recently that you're like, these are really changing the game?
Yeah, I think it's really neat to see the interlinking of satellites coming together. So there's satellites talking to each other more often. And they're using optical light like laser beam to talk to each other, basically. So it's like the data is coming through so much quicker than it ever has on orbit. And that's a new backbone layer that's happening in the space sector right now. And that's going to be really changing things. And so it's almost be creating a new world on the orbit plane of talking satellite to satellite. So that's pretty fun. And another one would be they're really trying to do refueling and doing, usually you build a satellite and then you have it on orbit and then it comes down and it burns back up. How can we also bring up other sats to refuel the old ones to keep it up in orbit longer, and also just more like not just make a one-off and let it burn up after it's done, but keep it up there for multiple years and refuel it. So it's almost like, after you build the car, you don't want it to just burn up after it's done. Let's keep refueling it and have it go for multiple generations.
When it comes to the commercialization of space and just the innovations being pumped out, is there anything that worries you?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the thing that we got to keep maturing as an industry is similar to what the aerospace, as far as the when planes were first going off and there was not as many up there, we didn't have to track them. So you just have to kind of mature the industry as far as tracking all these different missions. And so it's a very, we're quickly going, like I said, 7 times around the earth. How do we make sure that we're going over other countries, other domains? How are we tracking these? And so that's actually something that we're working on hard with these radios, is what we're calling the black boxes. We got to really know where every satellite is, instead of just depending on a radar when it goes by and having, 10-mile swaths of not knowing exactly where the satellite is for a while. So we need to have beacons on these things like black boxes to be able to tell, hey, where is your satellite? And also what's the critical things going on, not wait until it hopefully passes a ground station. So it's a maturing industry quickly. It takes a lot of countries to work together. They're all trying to do that in different ways. And sometimes it's difficult with some countries having different massive constellations they want to fly and other ones want to. So it's, we want to just, play nice on orbit.
Yeah. Okay, wait. One, are space devices bumping into each other? Does that happen frequently?
It doesn't happen frequently, but it could happen more often. It has happened, and it's a very dangerous thing. Like if you're going 17,000 miles per hour, it basically shatters and shoots a lot of parts everywhere. And then it's a cascading effect that can happen, where then it goes hits other ones and then other ones. And it could have a lot of debris breaking a lot of satellites on orbit, making that whole region of that orbit unusable for others. If it's a bunch of basically shrapnel flying around on orbit, and it takes years before it burns up again. So it's a very domain that we really have to make sure we know whoever is flying does no harm for the different groups.
Yeah. And it's almost like, who's going to build the street sweeper of outer space?
Yeah, and that's a big thing they're trying to solve, is so going and helping deorbit dead satellites that are there or things that are out of place. And so
who's the governing body? Like, who gets to make the decisions on, like, who does Elon have to call to get approval to launch a SpaceX rocket?
Yeah. So there's multiple organizations he would work with within the U.S. government, but then there's a global overseeing suggestion groups that provide data as well. So it's a lot of different groups you have to work with.
Like a governance board of like the global Earth Space Alliance.
So he would work through something like the FCC and FAA and a lot of different groups. There's a lot of
those are American based, right?
Those are the American based versions. And you have you would have to work with your environmental. If you're launching a rocket, there's a long list of different groups that he would have to work with to launch. And that's actually one of the parts people don't think about, helping people get to space. They're like, oh, you have to build your satellite, but you also have to work on the launch, but you also have to really there's a long list of licensing and do no harm processes that we've developed to help people do that. And also working with third parties to help us too.
Well, I'm just imagining if there's like someone, like a scientist that like, worked at NASA or wherever and like slowly worked their way up the ladder, and all of a sudden they're like the executive director, like the president of Earth Space Global
Enterprises.
And they're like, we're going to have an Elon launch today, and this company in Australia is launching something, and they're like, green light this one, but let's just get more checks on that. Like someone's like the like air traffic controller of all of space.
Exactly.
That would be a crazy position.
Eventually they're going to have to, but ITU is the big international one they have in Geneva, that basically one of the big issues is frequency. So you want to make sure that your communications are not going to interfere with other communication systems. And so they are a governing or a body of a lot of different representations from around the world to really help you out with that. So it's an interesting group.
That is ITU, the International Telecommunication Union. So this is for satellite systems.
They do a lot of different things, but they're trying to help making sure there's not interference through. So like if Starlink is launching all their satellites and they're taking such a large area and they want to use a certain bandwidth, it's basically why they've made standards here terrestrially. That's why people don't have radios interfering with each other. You always know when you're crossing over two different zones and they're interfering with each other, you have to get approvals and licensings of where you can broadcast and point. And so that's part of the space. And when you're going really fast and on orbit, you want to make sure you're not affecting things terrestrially. You don't want to affect the GPS system, the ones in geo. You would just want to make sure you're not interfering. And so there's a big review every time you go to orbit to make sure you don't affect those things.
That's wild. And you think about like the language barriers and like translation, and all of a sudden like, well, my rocket is speaking English and your rocket's speaking Spanish. Like how the control, like,
get everyone to interact. Well, I mean, and thankfully there's not enough rockets that are going to probably have those issues for a little while.
Dude.
And they're on different focuses of where they're launching in direction. So I'm sure they got to start thinking more that way down the road.
This is so wild to me. Like learning about aerospace and the advancements that are happening right here in Indiana.
That's right.
Like I think when people think of space, like is it Alabama? I feel like Space Camp is in Birmingham.
There's a Huntsville.
Huntsville.
Yeah. There's some there. Florida has some. California. And that's the neat thing is actually we have kids that are coming from Florida for our space camps for our nonprofit because we let students actually build hardware. So we're not just like theoretical. These students are actually getting to build something that could potentially go on orbit. And this next year, they actually will be able to do some of the microbits that we're going to be with this phase 2. So we're excited for the students these rounds to really get their hands dirty and solder and do some real cool stuff.
When I was a little kid, Apollo 13 was one of my favorite movies.
Oh, yes.
And I wanted to go to space camp
a fun one.
so bad, but it was like, I don't know, $2,000 or something.
Yeah.
And we were just like, it was not in the summer budget to go to Huntsville for like a week or two or whatever.
That's right. That's fair.
But like, I mean, how cool. Space camp is like the kid that went to space camp for the summer, like, that's right. So sick. Like you're definitely a flex when you got back to the school in the fall and you're like, oh, wait. Like I was at cross country and I was at this. And he's like, well, I went to Huntsville, Alabama to space camp. And you're like, oh
boy, got to do some stuff.
Like that's the guy.
He's doing some cool things. So you can do it here in Indiana now. And we're just doing off 69 and we have scholarships.
You guys do a summer space camp?
We have overnights. We're doing a girls STEM space camp. We're doing all sorts of fun stuff. So we have 6 camps this summer.
So if you have a kid that's interested in space and they've seen Apollo 13 and they're like when they put out the box with like all these
Interstellar, whatever they watch, you know. So
like in Apollo 13 though, when they like put out all the things like we have to figure out how to build the system.
That's right. Yeah.
And you have an hour and you're on the clock. I thought that would be so cool.
That is cool.
Like I wanted someone to just like give me a box.
Give a challenge here and say good luck.
Like, like 2 paper clips and a marshmallow and I can build a respirator.
The clock is live. You
like
know?
It's so cool.
It's MacGyver
that's awesome that you guys are hosting space. Like how many kids come?
Yeah.
Did you do it last year?
We did last year. We had all the camps there. And then we have I think we have spots up to 20 to 30 per camp. We have a makerspace that we launched along with an innovation hub where entrepreneurs can come and hang out too. So we actually have 4 new entrepreneurs that are going to probably be started joining our innovation hub here that we just launched, I think, over Labor Day. So that was
incredible.
So that's a new venture here we're starting. Is saying like, why can't we do a rural tech hub? You know, like why can't we just share our playbook with other entrepreneurs?
Well, I'm gonna have to come check that out.
Please do.
Yeah, that sounds so fun.
Get some good time up there.
So, I mean, wrapping up our space talk.
Yeah.
I do want to just know broadly, it's such an industry that is either really in the center of the spotlight with, SpaceX and it's on Twitter and you're watching and you're reading all that stuff. But I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions. What's the biggest misconception about aerospace companies and working in that industry?
Appreciate your question earlier. Just like how does space affect us and how far away is it? And I think that's very applicable of realizing, I didn't even fully understand the ecosystem of space and the seriousness of it. And as I go to conferences, it's becoming more and more aware of the impact of what we need to have some sort of plan or game plan of having space a part of our economies.
Yeah.
And so every country is really working on making sure. It used to be just a few countries. Almost all the countries are now saying, hey, we need to have some sort of foot in space.
I mean, like even with Space Force, people kind of thought it was a joke to start. Like, we're starting Space Force.
There's some great comedies about it, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But it's a great stand-up that they did for Space Force because really it's very different than how you would command an aircraft operation. Now we can work on space as its own sector. And that's how it starts. And then you let it grow over a couple of years and develop. And, there's a lot of neat things when people are really smart, people are thinking about it.
When you get a bunch of smart people in a room and give them a challenge or a problem and let them go crazy, like that's like where the magic really happens.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs involved now too. So it's just like, how do we help commercialize and use it for helping others too in the market? So it's helping I think space is beautiful to look up and really challenge and wonder. I mean, it's a great place to be inspired by. And there's a lot of it's just unimaginable how much area you get to work with when you go to orbit. But there's a lot of opportunity to also commercialize and use for humanity as far as what we can do here terrestrially.
Have you guys ever captured any data or photos or videos or anything in your work with space that just moved you, that made you feel like this is incredible?
It was really fun to see the deployment of our satellites. So just this last fall, we were doing this duplex mission that our project manager, Matt Orvis, who's been with us since the beginning, got to launch off the International Space Station. So we actually got to see our satellite deploy in space, a video of it as it was leaving the International Space Station. And so that was a really neat mission to see. Just like, oh, wow, there is truly, you get to visually see your satellite on orbit going around. And I'm glad to share that clip with you there.
Yeah.
And, we have some really neat data that we get to see regularly. And just like, we're like, whoa, that data is being collected as it's going on orbit, and we get to see some of the different zones of the atmosphere and having real data that could actually, if we do analysis on it, can bring some real change and perspectives of how we see our Earth. And so, just remembering some of the stuff we're building is currently, as we see the data coming down, like, oh, remembering where it's at and just reflecting on that. It's pretty neat opportunity.
That's
neat time.
So cool. And I can just imagine, you even talk about like seeing the curvature of the Earth from the weather balloon. Like that's something that like, I feel like after a lot of times you might take it for granted, but the first time you see that, you're just like, whoa. Yeah. It's always interesting. I feel like a ton of people say like, well, we're not curing cancer, or I'm not a rocket scientist. And it's like, you guys are literally rocket scientists.
Well, we appreciate you saying that. We like to say we're the spacecraft builders. Those rocket scientists get to build the rockets, but we were glad to build the buses to do the experiments and the science.
Incredible.
So the team is doing some cool stuff.
We're going to wrap up with some Indiana talk and some rapid fire space talk. This question is brought to you by our friends at JC Hart. They're a leader in creating enjoyable living experiences at apartment communities all across Indiana and beyond. Check them out at homeisjchart.com. My question for you, Matt, why do you call Indiana home?
So I'm a boomerang. I've been able to leave and come back a couple different times, different seasons of life. So grew up here, then came back as a young professional, and then now with kids. Each of them were beautiful in different ways. But I asked a few people that question too, just like, people that were transplants, and keep getting the same answer of like, it's people, and it's a beautiful thing that I don't call like India, and it's not always you're going to feel like it's a utopia, but it's the people that are here for a reason, and they're growing with you. And the pace of life is really rapid. I have 5 little kids, and so it's just been fun to go through a rhythm of life where it's very focused and intentional, and there's some beauty to that. And because it's already a pretty fast world with all the different things happening around us, so
do they
can
think,
treasure it.
Do they think Dad is cool for working with space stuff?
I don't think they know anything different. It's nothing that, but they do have fun with our STEM nonprofit. So maybe there's some other motives to help push NSE forward as well.
Well, okay, that's a good rapid fire question. Yeah. If there are parents out there listening whose kids are really into space, like, all that stuff, I think that sometimes they're like, oh, that's like a pipe dream, or that's like a hobby, like building rockets or whatever is a hobby. Like you probably need to go be an electrical engineer or whatever and get a real job. Yeah. Like how can they nurture their child's love of space and help them maybe find a career path that excites that?
No, and that's very important to us, intentional, because, advanced manufacturing, tech development, STEM, it's a huge shortage of that, and getting kids involved in that, or at least just aware of the process. It's like the scientific and engineering process. It will help them through their life of problem solving, but also like, soldering is something that every electrical engineer needs to know. And appreciate, and just exposure to that is going to bring there. And I think that's a lot of stuff I want for my kids, is exposure to cool things and awareness. And you can do these things here in Indiana if it's in space, but the tech development, it can be used in a lot of maturing our new manufacturing groups and help them think about how can we bring innovation into some of the new advanced manufacturing that needs to happen. And we do manufacturing well here. We're learning all the time from our other manufacturer partners. And actually our Dream Big program, phase 1, was completely funded by manufacturers because they see the need of getting kids excited about STEM and growing them at a younger age.
Heck yeah. And I just pulled up your 2026 summer space camps.
Great.
So parents out there, listen up. What will your kid do? See how engineers make real satellites, design and build their own payload, and launch it to the edge of space.
That's right.
Is that with balloons?
That's right. Yep.
So sick. When are the camps? Overnight camp, week 1, June 8th through the 12th. Week 2 is a day camp, June 16th through the 19th. Week 3 is a day camp, June 23rd to the 26th. And week 4 is a girls only overnight camp from July 13th to July 17th. And week 5 is a day camp, July 21st through July 24th. Any students entering 5th through 9th grade in 2026. Like, that's awesome. You have scholarships and financial aid.
That's right.
To come in and do a space camp here in Indiana.
And we really appreciate our sponsors that have helped us do that. And so nearspaceeducation.org. You can learn all that information and get interest and talk to some of our representatives there. And we'd be glad to have a conversation.
Like, I just remember being a kid, and I remember we went to, is there like a space museum or something in Huntsville?
Yeah,
like there's a thing.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, there's space stuff there. Yep.
Yeah, you can go there. And I remember like seeing a flyer about wanting to go to space camp because I thought that was so cool. Yeah. And I was in there playing in the, they have like a space shuttle or something that you can you can mess around in. I said, I want to go to space camp, and we just weren't able to pull it off. And that's something where I just felt like would have been such a cool opportunity to learn more about that I didn't get to do as a kid. So maybe if you're a parent out there and you have a kid that loves, is interested in space.
That's right.
What a great, and you get to send them to Upland for a week. And
that'll be fun.
Let them hang out. What's your favorite space movie?
Well, we talked about Interstellar. That actually is one of the top ones for me.
Yeah.
I love the way of thinking about warping time and how it kind of changes things there.
I mean, I can't even begin to explain that, but when they go down and then they come back and the guy's like 40 years older, is crazy.
Yeah, time is relative. It hurts the brain.
Yeah. I'm a big Star Wars guy.
Yeah, that's classic,
Yeah,
Star
right?
Trek, Star Wars, you can battle those two out.
Is there a launch that you've attended that just sticks with you?
There was a night launch I went to that lit the whole sky in Southern California. I got the honor to, and when I was younger, actually, it was when I was probably about 9 years old. And I couldn't even tell you the name of the rocket, but it still stuck with me as my first launch. And it made me excited about what people can do with those things.
What's one thing people need to visit when they come to Grant County?
Well, I'd love them to be NearSpace there, but while they're in Upland, we have the Ivanhoe's. If you've been there,
are you on the 100 flavor challenge or the wall or whatever?
I probably had more than 100, but I wasn't clocking it. So it's a tragedy, really.
Dude, you gotta clock that.
I gotta start now. So it's too late to never to start.
It's never too late to start. There we go.
I've done my part though.
What do you have advice for young engineers that want to pursue their dreams but maybe aren't sure how to, obviously everyone is probably applying for one of Elon's, companies in engineering, but outside of that, what advice would you have for young engineers?
Yeah, I think just having fun, tinkering with things. There's a lot of opportunity out there than ever as far as online little kits you can play with. You can just start working with stuff in your backyard and taking apart technology and playing with it. So I think it's really just a process of curiosity of how things work and just kind of diving deeper and deeper into that well.
If we were ever allowed to launch a rocket from the state of Indiana, where would you want to launch it from?
There's been talks of groups trying to look at that, and I think they'd like to launch it over the Lake Michigan.
Yeah.
It's because if you're going to do it over waters, and we have the largest water bodies there, it'd be launching over that to make sure. And I think once the industry, again, grows and matures and gets more steady of where they can launch these from and have a more consistency of proving it works over the ocean, then it could scale to different locations and different orbit planes.
Dude, Gary, Indiana becomes like the Cape Canaveral of the Midwest.
There you go. Right next to all the other things going on there. So there you go.
Right next to the Bears Stadium.
That's
you
right.
Catch a rocket launch and see a team lose a football game. Come on. All right. These are the final 3 questions that we ask every guest who comes on, all about the state of Indiana. First thing, when talking with, the prime aerospace companies, people from both coasts, Silicon Valley, all the, big tech space money. If you could shout it from the rooftops, what's something the world needs to know about Indiana?
Well, it's already happening here. So you've mentioned 2 things. I'm sorry, you said 1, but I'm going to do 2 on you.
Okay.
1, we've already got some of the top engineering schools that are already producing a lot of the space groups right now happening. And we have some of those great groups from L3 to Rolls-Royce and others that are right here in Indianapolis and Fort Wayne. So there's already a space economy happening. It's just a little more pocketed. And really, it's an opportunity that is being untapped as well. So I think there's such a great talent, workforce, and group here that is being nurtured, especially through these like Dream Big programs and others that would be exciting, especially as we think about manufacturing for space. Why not bring that here to a state that's all about manufacturing?
Yeah.
And so it's time to think about space more than just R&D. Time to get serious about manufacturing it.
Oh, I love that. Like if you could, like starting from Upland, like a space manufacturing corridor. Like that would be really, really cool.
Yeah, there we go.
I love it. Okay, this is your opportunity to enlighten us about a part of the state that you love that more people need to be talking about. What is a hidden gem in Indiana?
Besides our sunsets, during COVID, I got to explore more parts of Indiana, which was great in Airbnb. So, I always loved my time along the Ohio River down south. It's a beautiful area to look at from a nature perspective. Mounds is a secret gem there too. That's right off I-69. Got to do those hikes and races around that. So there's just, I'm always a fan of water and rivers, and we have a lot of that.
Yeah, I just went to Mounds for the first time. The Great Mound is so interesting.
Yeah.
And we tried to take some pictures and some content, and it was okay, but it just doesn't do it justice.
No,
and when you think about, Native Americans here in Indiana.
That's right, the history there.
Moving the earth work, it's an earthwork. It's a big horseshoe type looking mound with a spot in the center where they would meet and gather and do all those things. You mix the earth and nature and you mix it with history, and I just love that.
It's a good combination. Yeah, I love that.
Oh man, very, very cool. Was there a specific spot along the Ohio River that really drew your attention?
There wasn't one. I think we were even next to a city when we stopped at. It was an Airbnb that we just found that was just, just the power of a strong river like that, and kind of recognizes how small, kind of like looking to the stars, it's just, you realize we're small in this world, and but we're also doing a part. So
I think we take that southern border in the Ohio River a little bit for granted. It is huge.
It's a big river.
You can be down there and have an overlook, and you see a huge barge going down, and it looks so small within the river. It's so
it's a little scary to swim across that one. So
might need to try to do that.
There you go.
Finally, this is where we get guest recommendations and learn about other people across Indiana doing inspiring things. Who's a Hoosier we need to keep on our radar? Someone who's doing big things.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to some of our educators, groups that are really investing in the kids. One person that's really helped guide a lot of NearSpace education is a retired superintendent, Leslie Winters. She has been really instrumental in just seeing now in her retirement to work with a lot of different groups to bring synergy between other groups that are already happening. So I'm excited to see all the different efforts there. She's working with a neat group called Slingshot that is based out of Grant County, and another person would be Darren Campbell. So he's doing some really neat work with his group of scaling a company from just a couple, 2 or 3 people into multiple hundreds now.
Yeah, that's crazy cool.
Yeah.
I love it, man. Matt, it was a pleasure to learn more about all the stuff you're doing with NearSpace Launch and NearSpace Education. The way you're making, the way the space has become accessible, and you guys are helping make it accessible to young Hoosiers. I think that's so cool. The fact that you guys are here really soon, going to be launching 6 different satellites.
Yeah, so this will be a Constellation partnership with NearSpace Education, manufacturers, and NSL. And we're going to be inviting people here in early April to a fun launch party. So
we'll link it up. Yeah, we'll link it up in the show notes. Do you have a date on that yet?
We're looking at April 4th. So that's current date right now. The rocket launches can change their dates, but we'll definitely launch a high altitude balloon. Hopefully we can review data by that time on orbit. And just look around and see how people are celebrate the students that did all that hard work.
Yeah, incredible. And you talk about the phase 2 of making, education around space more accessible for younger students across the state of Indiana. I just think it's so cool. And yeah, the ever evolving world of AI and space, it seems to be at the forefront of everything. And really empowering Hoosier students to know hey, you're smart enough to do stuff like this. We can do this stuff in Indiana. You don't have to move to California or Florida or wherever. We can build cool, modern companies here in the state of Indiana. And your guys' commitment to Grant County, renovating historical buildings and just pouring in and attracting and retaining our best engineering talent across the state. I love it. I think it's so cool. Keep up the great work. If people want to learn more, if there's an engineer out there that's maybe ready for a change, to switch things up, and wants to consider look at you guys, how can they learn more about you guys? Yeah, so if they're interested in some of our commercial work or government work, NearSpaceLaunch.com. That is the company we've been talking mostly about. And then our nonprofit, NearSpaceEducation.org, is the other opportunity there. So feel free to reach out to us. Absolutely. And if you want to send your kid to space camp, go check out NearSpace Education. There's, I think, 5 weeks where you guys are doing camps, and there's overnights, day camps. Such a cool, interesting opportunity to get your kids involved in. Matt, thanks for stopping by, and we'll talk soon. Thanks so much, man. Really fun to be here. This show is made possible by our friends up at Sweetwater. Whether you're looking to start a podcast or take your content to the next level, click the link in the description to see all my gear recommendations at Sweetwater. If you want a behind behind the scenes look at everything we're doing across the state, make sure you follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Nate Spangle. Thank you so much for listening and being a part of what makes the Hoosier State great. We'll see you next time here on Get In.